Let's bring in ABC's Matt Dowd and Cokie Roberts. And Matt, seems like the experts at the market got it wrong too.
The experts have been wrong a lot along the way. Join the group in this. I think when you look at the market, as Rebecca knows as full well, the market likes predictability, right? And I think every speech that has come out, starting with Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton to Barack Obama's speech, is a calming influence on this election. The market likes that. But I think ultimately the market, just like the voters, are going to look at what Donald Trump does instead of what he says.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about, because what's unpredictable is what he's going to do. You worked with President Bush in a similar situation where he came to the White House even though he lost the popular vote, said he had a mandate. There's such a jumble of different kinds of policies inside Donald Trump's campaign. Does he go forward with things like the immigration, building the wall, or does he reach out with Republicans and pretty much pass their agenda?
Well, I think he's even in a more unique situation than George Bush was. Donald Trump won more electoral votes than any Republican since 1988. And lost the popular vote by a bigger, he will lose the popular vote by a bigger margin than George W. Bush lost the popular vote and won the presidency. I think what you're going to see in the first 100 days is a series of things where they call them low-hanging fruit. I think he's going to nominate a Supreme Court justice that appeals to the conservative right. I think he's going to do a series of quick things that appeal to the conservative right. And then if my expectations are right, he's going to go negotiate with Congress on things that they can all agree to, infrastructure spending, and maybe even something on the tax code. And so I think he's going to do both simultaneously. I think the signals to look for are who he starts nominating for those key positions. That's going to tell us a lot.
A lot of people are anxious to hear those names. All right, Matt, let's bring in Cokie Roberts. She made it home to Washington. Cokie, good for you to be with us again. A very important part of the transition is preparing the president-elect to be commander-in-chief. What do you know along those lines?
Well, again, it remains a mystery. You know, one of the things that's so interesting about this transition is there's no old Washington hand here. You know, that's what we're used to. We're used to a Jim Baker, who, of course, came in with both George Bushes to some degree. You know, someone who has been here, who knows the players. There are 4,000 political appointees that have to be named. 1,000 of those have to get Senate confirmation. There's an enormous amount of work to be done. And at the commander-in-chief level, we know that Donald Trump had the backing of a lot of people in the military. He kept arguing that he had 200 admirals and generals behind him, all of that. But we have not a clue what his real intentions are there, and I suspect he doesn't either.
And John Carl, you know, we talked a little bit about the cabinet right there. One possible Washington hand would be the former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. But you take us inside that meeting with President Obama and Donald Trump today. Probably won't get into a lot of substance, but we do know that Donald Trump wants to undo, right away, a lot of President Obama's accomplishments.
And he can undo a lot because this is a president who used the power of executive order more than any previous president. Some of the big ones on the environment, climate change, those things can be done really with the signature of a President Trump. Also, I would expect, because Republicans have been talking about it so much for so long, that if they pass, and I expect they will, a repeal of all or parts of Obamacare, President Trump will certainly sign that into law. So there's a lot that can be undone immediately by President Trump.
Of course, a lot of the focus will be on the meeting between those two men. But Cokie Roberts, we also know that Melania Trump will be meeting with the First Lady. How do you expect that to go?
I think that's a much easier meeting. This is basically two gracious people. Michelle Obama could not be more understanding of what it's like to move into that White House with a child. Laura Bush was very helpful to her, and I know she'll be very helpful to Melania Trump. And it is, you know, it is awkward. There's nothing comfortable about it. But it's much easier for two moms to joke about a kid and talk about, you know, school, that kind of thing, than it is for the two men.
And Matt Dowd, we saw these protests overnight. Donald Trump, in his first speech, his very gracious speech, talked about binding the wounds of the nation. What more do you see him doing to address the majority who voted against him and those protesters?
Well, I think he's going to, it's more than just him, and I think it would be great if he keeps the calming words that he's got going. I think he needs to rein in some of his supporters who basically say, listen, we're in this together. I think this is going to it's going to stay what it is, but watch for the January 20th inauguration. I wouldn't be surprised if this protest culminates in something we've never seen in a presidential inauguration.
We will be watching. Okay, Matt Dowd, thanks very much.